Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. Let's see how this is going. I think I got that muted. Yes, I do. So I'm going to do a recap of things that have happened this last week relating to Final Cut Pro. Mainly, other post-production things as well, but mainly to Final Cut Pro. Let's see what we got here. My name's Richard Taylor, and if you have any questions, you can go over to, you should be watching this live if you're on Facebook, facebook.com, Richard Taylor TV. That's a good place for you to go if you want to ask questions. Also on YouTube, you can go to YouTube, Richard Taylor TV as well, and on Periscope if you're on Periscope. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them over there, and we'll try to get to them the best we can. Have you heard anything about Final Cut Pro? That's my first question for you. Has anybody heard anything about Final Cut Pro? Final Cut Pro is kind of something's going to be happening, I guess. That's what they're gearing up for, because it's been pretty boring for the last year. We haven't had an update with features since October 2018, like 14, 15, 16 months ago. Yeah, I know we had the under the hood stuff done with Metal 2, but that Metal's been in Final Cut Pro for a while. They implemented it for the Mac Pro, of course, but it's been kind of a little on the boring side for like a while, quite a while. So what does that mean? That means something big is going to be happening, right? Something big. Final Cut Pro 10.5. Now, here's an interesting thing. We were discussing on a private group yesterday, a couple of groups that I have on Facebook, Final Cut Pro related groups. When Michael Cioni was on Final Cut Pro Radio a few months back, I asked him how he would improve Final Cut Pro. What would he tell the Apple team? And one of the things that he suggested was dropping the old name and using a brand new name. And the reason he said that was because maybe that would get rid of some of the negativity towards Final Cut Pro. Maybe. We don't know for sure, but there's a lot of people that still have bad feelings about Final Cut Pro, and he was thinking maybe that would get rid of a few of the negative things if they actually drop the name. Sorry. That should be back now. Thanks for that. Thank you. I had it muted. I'm not sure why I did, but I did. So I just checked over there and saw it was muted. So anyway, what do you think is going on at Final Cut Pro for 2020. 2019 did not have very many things going on for it, not as far as in the public. They may be doing something underground, behind the scenes. That's fine, but they also should be doing something that the public can see. So I'm just presuming that they're really working hard on the next update. Whether that's going to be 10.5 or a different... What if they named it something different? What if they came up with a brand new app and named it something different? That would be interesting. Yeah, I had my audio muted. I'm not sure why I did that. But I did, so it was there. So one of the things that's coming up is, one of the things that just happened was Vlog University. Notice it says, with support from Apple. Now, what happened was they had a panel and Apple was moderating the panel. Let me see if I can find that. Somewhere around here. Motion VXF was there. Steve Martin was there. A lot of people. Jeff Greenberg, of course. iJustine. I don't know some of these other people. And that was pretty successful. It looked like it was pretty successful. So that was dedicated to vlogging. So Garrett says a brand new app. I doubt that, but a fresh update is better. Yes, it is. It is better. I'm not. I don't know what they're doing. It's just taken so long that I'm curious. We're all going to find out in 2020. That's a definite. So there's an old adage that says, "Hello, Tamaz." He says hello from Facebook. There's an old adage that says, "Those that know can't say, and those that say don't know." Well, that's not the only things that happens. There are people that know that are not under NDA. I've talked to some of them over the years, and that's absolutely true. So they know and they can say because they're not under NDA. Now, whether they do or not say things, that's up to them. But those two options are not the only options. So let's see. What do we have here? One of the things that came up this week, look what we have. Once again, Adobe Premiere versus Apple Final Cut Pro 10. What's the difference? This was PC Mag. Oh, this is actually last year. This is from last year. Oh, I was wondering where it came up from. It said March 2019. It just showed up on the Twitter feed. But once again, they go through different things about Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere, and I think they pretty much got a tie. I don't think one beat the other. Each one has their own strengths. Of course, we all know that. That's not a surprise in and of itself. So the idea of a brand new app, Michael Cioni said, well, a brand new app or a brand new name for a new version of the existing app to drop all the negativity that's associated with Final Cut Pro and start brand new. That's what he was talking about. So they're up to something, aren't they? The Apple team is up to something, the Final Cut Pro team, and because it's taken so long since version 10.4 came out. Here's the count up timer I have. 2 years, 1 month, 24 days since Final Cut Pro 10.4 came out. That's a long time between updates. The other updates only took 14, 16, and 18 months, the typical update. And the only one that took longer was 10.0 to 10.1, and that was major. That took 30 months, I think. 30 months. So if you're looking for, there's a couple of things that happened this week. We're going to talk about one here. Let's see, I'll bring this up. This one came up on Twitter this week. Our friends from PostLab, Jasper, never having to relink in Final Cut Pro 10 again. You can go to PostLab_app on Twitter to find out about that. I have not played with it yet. Jasper gave me a demo at the FCPX Creative Summit. I haven't had a need to use it yet. Right now, I'm not collaborating with anybody. I'm just working locally from home. I'm not sure if there's a case use for that or not. And then what else do we have? Here's another thing that came up this week on Twitter. My friend from France in the socks of FCPX, FX Boomerang, is an app I use during post-production before sending a timeline to mix, color grading. It makes inventory of all effects, LUT, format, frames per second, etc. And then that can be useful on a spreadsheet or connected titles. And he actually put up a video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll play a little bit of it, demonstrating exactly how this works. It's on Vimeo, but you can follow him in the socks of FCPX. This is how he sets it up. Like I said, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can go in the socks of FCPX on Twitter and find out more about that. I'm not sure his exact association with that app, but he likes it a lot. So in that case, he's been around for a while. We've texted back and forth quite a few times over the years. What else do we have? What else do we have? Let me see. So here's something that came up. Listen, when you're doing your video, pay attention to the audio right from the get-go. Everybody knows that good audio is at least 50% of good video, but people a lot of times don't pay attention to the audio. What they say is, I'll fix it in post. I'll put a denoiser plug-in on it. That's not the way you should be doing. You should be paying attention at the source and get the best audio that you can. You shouldn't need a denoiser plug-in on every video that you shoot. You shouldn't need that. Sometimes you're shooting live. I shoot a lot of live stuff, yes, and I'm out in public and I don't have control over the audio, and yes, or there's a place that I'm shooting and an air conditioning unit comes on or something, yeah. If I don't have control over that, yeah, I could drop it on. I don't use a denoiser plug-in on everything that I shoot. I pay attention to the audio right from the beginning. But speaking of that, let's go to our friend Michael Matzdorf brought this to my attention this week. It's a new noise reducer plugin for Mac OS, Windows, $59, $60, iPad, iPhone, $15. I have not used it. I have 2 or 3 other noise reduction plugins that I use currently when I need them. This says an advanced audio noise reducer, simple, straightforward interface. Michael Matzdorf, a friend of Final Cut Pro Radio, said it was really, really good. It did a really, really good job. Very simple to use and stuff. So that's another thing that came out this week. What else do we got going on? So if you're familiar with NAB, I'm going to play a few clips from last year.
Alan, can you bend down a little bit when you get in the frame, because I'm cutting the top of your head off. Thank you. Especially next to this guy.
Hi, I'm a normal-sized human. What's up, man?
I always had the same problem with mine.
That was Alan Seawright, who now works for LumaForge. He works for LumaForge. Patrick Southern left LumaForge and went with Frame.io, and Alan joined LumaForge. So, and that, of course, was my friend Brad Olson. Let's see what else we have here. That was from NAB. That was the Frame.io booth. So at the same booth, here's Sam Messman.
Hey, Taylor, how are you? Nice to see you, man. Yeah, I got a little... lady. I didn't think about it. The lady picked us up.
You can see Chris Hawking in the background and Brad Olson as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening over there at NAB this year. Jasper, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there at NAB? I know you were there last year. Well, actually, I'm sure you were there last year. I didn't see you at NAB last year, but I did see you at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit one day. You demonstrated how exactly that works for relinking. We'll see. I'm sure you'll be coming to NAB. Let's see, we got a comments here. What? So let's see here. Let me see, just check a couple of comments, make sure there's none specifically. Oh, yeah. There we go. That's fine. Jasper says he wasn't there last year and won't be there this year, but my colleagues are going. Okay. I didn't think I saw you there last year. So here's an interesting thing. Some people are not going to, regulars are not going to NAB this year. I know Mike Horton's not planning on going. He's not involved with the Super Meet. The Super Meet, where in the heck is that? I had it here somewhere. Here it is. Super Meets. So the Super Meet is happening at the usual night, Tuesday night in Las Vegas, at a new location. It's actually right up from the convention center, from the Las Vegas Convention Center. Don't know who's going to be on the list yet, but I'm sure they're going to have a lot of good people like they always do. A lot of raffle prizes and stuff. So that's the only thing that I know of specifically happening at NAB so far. Now, here's the thing. It's only February the 7th. So I expect by the end of February, we will have more information about events happening at NAB, and hopefully we're going to hear about some Final Cut Pro specific events. Hopefully the Apple team is going to, Final Cut Pro team is going to be there this year. We don't know. They weren't there last year, not presenting. I'm not talking about just walking around and talking to developers. That's not exciting for the rest of us. That's just exciting for you guys that are doing the walking and the meeting. I'm talking about a public presentation like they've had in the past. They did it in 2017 and they did it in 2018. They skipped 2019. Hopefully they're coming back in 2020. Now, here's the thing. They won't be back unless there's a big announcement for Final Cut Pro or a feature announcement. I mean, they're up to 10.4.8. Could they go 10.4.9? Yeah, probably. Bug fix or whatever they wanted to do. But I'm hoping they jump right to 10.5 with new features and some brand new stuff that people have been asking for a while. So here's in 2018, which was the last time Apple had a presentation. Notice the announced date, February the 15th, 2018. FCP events FCPX events at NAB 2018. Final Cut Pro will be a number of events. Apple itself will present the latest workflow and case studies about Final Cut Pro at Post Without Limits. This was actually in the convention center itself in room S19. That's where it was. And then, of course, in the past, they've had the Guru Gathering. That's not happening. Last year they had Faster Together Gathering of some sort. I'm not sure what was the actual moniker, but it wasn't. It was not the Guru Gathering. Guru Gatherings cost a lot of money, and that kind of got pushed aside, it looks like. People are not involved with that anymore. Let me see just a couple more things. Let's see. So one of the weird, I have a Mac Pro over here. I've been using it since it came out. I was one of the first people to have one. One of the odd things with my Mac Pro is startup. So I have my main monitors in front of me, which is a 34-inch LG monitor, 34 inches. I think it's a 21:9 aspect ratio. It's very, very wide, which I really like for long timelines. And then to my right, to your left, I have a smaller monitor turned up and down vertically. So when I first started booting up with my Mac Pro, the monitor that's vertical would be the one that would be the boot up screen. So I was seeing everything turn 90 degrees sideways. I had to turn my head to type in my name and stuff. And I didn't want that, and I couldn't figure out exactly why I was choosing that monitor. So what I did was that was HDMI port, the HDMI port on the graphics card. So what I ended up doing is pulling that plug out when I shut down at night, and then I would boot up with the 34-inch LG monitor, which is plugged in via Thunderbolt 3. So that solved that problem, and then I'd plug it in after it was finished booting up. But then after a while, I'm thinking, well, the Mac Pro should know which one's my main boot up screen. So now I have it plugged in, and it does boot up to the LG. However, this is the odd thing. The other morning I had 2 RAID 5s plugged in on Thunderbolt 3 on the Mac Pro. And when I booted up, it once again went back to the HDMI port and the vertical screen that I have as a boot up screen. So I shut it down, unplugged the RAIDs, which were on Thunderbolt 3, booted it back up, and it went back to the LG monitor. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's just not seeing the monitor. It's looking on a Thunderbolt 3 port. I don't know. I have it set as the default one, but it has not. It only works if I don't have anything else plugged into Thunderbolt 3, it seems. But it worked this morning, so that's good. What else do we have here? Oh, here's another interesting tidbit. Developers can now sell Mac and iOS apps as a single purchase on the App Store. That's certainly interesting, isn't it? Coming about now. I guess people have been requesting that for a while. Because usually there's 2 different stores. There's a store for iOS and there's a store for apps for the Mac. Let me just check something here too while I'm here. There we go. Nothing happening. Just double check and make sure that there's no update to Final Cut Pro happening. Because here's the thing. Final Cut Pro can be updated at any time. I'm expecting an update by or before NAB. Who knows? They can update it at any time, but I'll tell you, here's what's happened in the past. So we're up to Final Cut Pro 10.4. So 10.0 to 10.4 is 5 updates to Final Cut Pro. All of those updates except for 10.1. 10.1 is the only exception. All of those updates, every one, was announced around either NAB or the FCPX Creative Summit, one or the other. For example, the original Final Cut Pro was previewed at the Super Meet at NAB. That was 10.0. All the other ones, 10.1 came out in December, like 30 months after 10.0. 10.0 came out in June, but it was previewed at NAB, the Super Meet at NAB. Apple took over not the Super Meet. It was the LA, whatever that was. Was it the Super Meet or LACPUG meeting? I forget which it was. But that's where it was previewed around NAB. 10.2 was previewed. All of them were either NAB or the Creative Summit. Every single one except for 10.1. So it seems like that would happen again in 2020. Something's happening with 10.5. I mean, I don't know any features that are happening, that's for sure. I don't know if anything specific, but it's got to be big, right? It has to be big. What else is going on? Anything going on in your world, Final Cut Pro world? I am getting ready to do some other things. I have to study for an exam. I actually got my ham radio license.
Channel mode.
I actually got my ham radio license, and I'm going for another test for a more advanced license within a week or two. So I'm studying for that. I've always wanted. I had it when I was a kid, and I always wanted to get it again. So I got it again. All right, so I think I'm going to get back to work. If there's nothing else going on, let me just check. I'll check over on Twitter, see if there's anything going on. Oh, there we go. TweetDeck. Let's just check and see if there's anything going on in Final Cut Pro land. I use... What is this called? TweetDeck? I think it is. So Fred Rhodes III had a nice follow. Friday included me and FCPRadio, Final Cut Pro Radio. In the socks of FCPX, he said he's after 8.5 years, he's still in love with Final Cut Pro 10. Motion VFX has this nice, cool plugin, M-Cam Rig. It's for free. You can go to there and get that for free. I think I already have it. I'm sure I already have it. Charlie Austin's friend of ours. Let's see what he has going on there. Drive-by posts, multi-NLE workflow fun. I guess he works both with Final Cut Pro and Premiere. He's talking about going back and forth between the two. Yep. Lots of interesting stuff. So Jasper says, what kind of exam is that? That's a Federal Communications Commission exam. FCC has an exam. I passed one exam last week, and I'm going to get a more advanced version of the license that gives me more frequencies to broadcast on and more privileges. So I'm going to take that test, which is a little bit harder than the last one. The last one was not that easy. You know, I had algebra 1 and 2 when I was in grade school and high school, and I haven't revisited it, but I had to for this exam because there's a lot of formulas in there dealing with fractions and things that I did. So what else is going on? Anything? One of the things, let me just say, so Future Media Concepts has already announced, let me see if I can pull that up. I don't know if I can or not, has already announced they are going to do another summit in 2020. There's no date, of course, yet or anything, but they did announce it. Let me just see if I can pull that up. Of course, I don't think I can, but just in case it's quick and easy. I did pull it up before. Well, in any event, they are, I pulled it up on their website. They are going to do another FCPX Creative Summit in the fall, late October, early to mid-November, who the heck knows. I know they're at the mercy of Apple when they do stuff like that, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anything else going on? Let me check here, over here on Facebook. Just a couple of things. Some of the stuff on Facebook is not for the, I can't reveal it because they're in private Facebook groups. There's a couple of private Facebook groups that I work with. We have one for Apple certified trainers, and we were talking about stuff that happened yesterday that we found out about that we're not sure exactly what's going on, but something's going on with Final Cut. Can't talk about it because it wasn't a public post. Let's see. I don't think anything else much is going on. It's a little quiet. I do expect more information to come out about NAB, of course, in February, the rest of February. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Apple does a presentation like they've done in the past in 2017 and 2018. Don't know. We'll find out. But I hope they do. If they make an announcement in February that Apple is going to present, when I say Apple, I don't mean they're going to have a booth. They just have like a classroom setting and they do a presentation. That would be good because that would mean that there's going to be a new version of Final Cut Pro they're going to show. They're not going to just show us Final Cut Pro 10.4, 0.8, or 4.7. That's been out for 6 months. They didn't have an update for the FCPX Creative Summit, which was disappointing. There was nothing around that summit, a new version of Final Cut Pro. So they are way overdue. Let me just pull this up. We're on connecting. We're on Periscope. I don't go there that often, but just once in a while. All right, so I'm going to get out of here, get back to work. I hope everybody's having a good weekend. It's supposed to rain. It's really windy here. I'm not sure what's going on with this crazy weather. February, typically around Washington and Baltimore, very, very cold and a lot of snow. February is one of the snowiest months around here, but not so far this year. Gonna grab a drink. This is my new favorite non-carb drink. I switched to sparkling ice. This is not a commercial. It has 0 carbs and 0 sodium. And it tastes good. It uses fruit juice and some other things. So I'm sure I'll be taking those to NAB with me. Hey, who's going to NAB? Anybody? Anybody planning on going to NAB this year? Was anybody at Vlog University on the podcast here? Let me pull up another clip So here's an interesting thing. So at NAB, this is interesting. It's like a madhouse. It's acres and acres and acres of people trying to sell you stuff and demonstrating stuff. Fred Rhodes says going to be warm and slushy, maybe some snow. Very good. So NAB itself, it's acres and acres and acres of showrooms and vendors, and it's like the old people that would come out and try to get you to come into a nightclub in the old days. Everybody's saying, come over here and see this, come over here and see that. Well, I can't see everything, and the things I'm mainly interested in are Final Cut Pro related, of course. That would make sense since this is Final Cut Pro Radio. So one of the curious things last time that I was there is I'm walking down this. Black Magic has the biggest booth, which is where Apple used to be, apparently, when you walk in the door to the South Hall. And then you keep going, and then I was walking down there last year, and on one side of the hall was a big booth, not a big, like a presentation area, and there was Adobe. And they had their loudspeakers up. They were doing a demonstration. They had loudspeakers up, and you can hear them. And then turned to the other side, and it was Black Magic. So you had Black Magic on one side, and you had Adobe on the other side. And they both had loudspeakers, and they were both doing demonstrations directly across from each other.
If I select something, that's going to bring it up, not only in my source viewer, but also some stuff in the metadata. So we're looking at
You would think that they'd want to be away from each other, one down the hall, one down the lane here and there, just because the audio, it was a lot louder than what I had on the video. But I thought that was curious that they did that right across from each other at the same time, doing demos at the same time. Here's a couple of friends. This was from an event that Future Media Concerts or conferences put on last year. You might recognize them.
Yes. How are you? Are we live? You can be on camera now.
All right, that's correct. I can't say anything, but I can be on camera.
I can't hear anything anyway. I got a little mic.
All right. Are you streaming?
Oh, well, good. I hope it's good sound.
Ronnie Cortins and Steve Bays, of course. We meet a lot of people there. And one other person that I have a little clip of from NAB last year.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Nice rig.
Michael Cioni, he came on the radio show as well. And I expect all those people to be there again. Of course, Michael Cioni is now with Frame.io, which is where the booth was that we just saw. So that's all the news for the week so far, unless something happens today. I always have to check, make sure nothing's happening as we're coming off. Of course, if there's an update to Final Cut Pro, I'll be back on the air, and we'll talk about that as it's going live. But who knows? It's going to be NAB. It's going to be up before that. Don't know. We'll find out. Is it going to be 10.5? Is it going to be something else? Who knows? We will find out for sure. All right, everybody. If you want to follow along, you go to Facebook, facebook.com, Richard Taylor TV. The same with youtube.com, Richard Taylor TV, instagram.com, Richard Taylor TV. I'm not on there very much. I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do on Instagram besides post pictures occasionally. You can't put long videos on. You can't do live streams on there that I know of anyway. Go to FCPX.tv, your home for all things Final Cut Pro 10. Right now I have like 60 different articles linked about the Mac Pro. And that's it. Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live weekly news wrap-up. Tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to have a live session with some guests. We're going to be on about 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, and that would be for 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time tomorrow morning. We'll have some guests to talk about Final Cut Pro stuff, of course, and whatever else pops into our heads. So everybody, I'm Richard Taylor. I will be talking to you later this week. Fred says, have a great weekend. Thank you, Fred. You too. Fred Rhodes III. Everybody, be safe. And if anything develops in the Final Cut Pro world, I will pop back on here live in my studio. Talk to y'all later. Richard Taylor here, signing off.